All right,
Don't give me that.
you can go.
Okay, my story is called David the Legend on how the trees got leaves. Whenever a grandchild visited his or her grandparents, they usually expected a story or adventure that they had. But some stories are special that not many people know about. This is one of those stories. The story about a child named David who changed the world. Grandpa, tell me the story of how the world got its colors, Andy asked. Andy's grandpa turned from his book and leaned back in his recliner with a sigh. Again? Well, okay. It all started back in 1916, when the world was plain black and white. A boy named David Foster was 12 years old. He lived on a cow farm and always thought the world was boring and black and white. And in his free time, he searched and searched for a potion that would bring beauty and make the world a more cheerful place. As Andy listened to his grandpa Agnes' story, he tried to imagine the world back then. Being only 7, Andy had a very big imagination, but he just couldn't imagine a black and white world. Agnes continued his story. David's father, Doug, was an American soldier in World War I. Whenever his dad came home, he would bring spoils like scrap and coins to him. His siblings, Sean and Brianna, were both older than David. As for his mother, her name was Tina, and she was the only one that was interested in David's unusual hobby. And sometimes she would go out with David and help him collect ingredients for his potion. But one day, she had gone out on the farm to harvest crops, and officers caught her eating the crops and was hung for stealing.
Oh,
This part of the story always made Andy
nice.
upset. Sometimes she even cried. Ever since then, David has been a quiet boy, and he only had one friend, Max. David's hobby was trying to make a potion that would heal. He often collected many different drinks and medicines and mixed them together in his room. The rest of his family was never really interested in his work. Most of the time they found it strange. He sometimes spent days trying to come up with an elixir, and he would test it on trees. The trees were just old plain mounds of wood, and they only had twigs and branches. Nobody really believed in David. They all just thought he was crazy. He has tried to make a potion many, many times, but they never worked. Andy's grandpa stopped the story and says, "Follow me to the kitchen." Andy knew his grandpa was going to make himself some coffee, since he drinks a cup almost every 10 minutes. Agnes got off his recliner and walked to the small white kitchen. Andy followed. The kitchen had a coffee pot, stove, and a microwave. Is that... Oh wait, Agnes poured himself some coffee that was as thick as mud, then continued his story. Every once in a while, David visited his mother's grave that sat by her favorite tree, and brought a bushel of flowers. But one day, David had something else to do. He had come up with a potion that he thought was destined to work, made with water, ink, and oil. He opened the elixir, then poured a drop on the tree's root. David waited, but nothing happened. As Agnes was getting into character, Andy interrupted. Did it work? Did David work? I'm getting to that. Agnes drinks the last sip of his coffee, then continues the story. Now where was I? Oh yeah. David, filled with sorrow, goes into a rage, punches the rugged old tree. A branch falls and hits the ground, nearly missing David. David, exhausted, falls on his knees, leaning on the tree, and starts to cry. Out falls a tear. The tear hits the root, and almost instantly, the tree sprouted colorful shapes. The branches were not just sticking out of its big old piece of wood, they were covered with leaves. The color bolted to the ground. It started to spread all over the field and his mother grave, then down to the farm. As David was running to the barn, he noticed it was colorful and the world was not black and white anymore. The cows were going crazy, jumping and kicking from the surprise of color. Andy interrupts again. Is that how the world got its colors? Yes, Angus replied, then returned to his book. How do you know this? Andy's mind was buzzing with questions, but this was the one question that he thought he didn't answer. Because, Andy said, still looking at his book, David was my dad, and don't give up on yourself for what's to come. I'm gonna do something as great as David. Andy cheered, but remember, his grandpa said, don't give up.